Hello, and thank you for being curious enough to follow the link. The main idea behind these videos is to help the parents or guardians of students who are following the AQA A-Level English Language specification to understand exactly what's being studied and how it's being assessed. You may already have asked this of your son or daughter, but got nothing more than a vague answer, if you were lucky. These introductions, then, are designed primarily for parents. But if you've come here as a student of the subject, then I hope some of your questions are answered. But remember, this is just my interpretation. It isn't a replacement for what you're being taught in class, and it isn't a quick fix if you've missed lessons. If you're a fellow teacher of AQA language and resource hunting, feel free to use this. Even better if you can offer corrections or suggestions if I've got anything wildly wrong. But as Woody says to Sid in Toy Story, play nice. So let's move on. Okay, so first things first, just like any other examined subject, I would imagine, Language A-Level has a body of language selected from the huge everything that ever could be known about language collection, and your son or daughter is expected to A, remember, and B, more importantly, understand that knowledge. Once the content is remembered and understood, good, that's part of the job done. Secondly, what good is knowing things if you're not able to apply that knowledge? So a substantial part of the language qualification assesses how students are able to apply the linguistic knowledge that they've gained to analyse texts or discuss language issues such as language development, language varieties, or language change. So far, so good. But what good is knowledge and the ability to apply that knowledge if you can't communicate it to someone else so that they can benefit or learn from it, or in the examiner's case, mark it? Finally, nothing man or woman made is ever perfect. So the final skill is being able to evaluate language effects or theories and ideas about language. Essentially, this is how most of the A-level subjects are structured, whether they're being assessed through writing, through practical skills. It all boils down to knowledge, application, and evaluation. In English language, and most other A-levels, marks are awarded for being able to do these things on an ability scale, with band 1 marks effectively saying, yeah, you haven't really got this, and at the other end, band 5, if that's the highest band, saying you understand this perfectly and can do it really well. I'll deal with the descriptors for English language A-level in future videos. There are 5 assessment objectives in English language, and the objectives carry different marks depending on the questions asked, and you'll see this later. You can see from the language in the bands roughly what they're looking for. At the top end, looking for evaluation, the ability to spot patterns and describe them, and more complex language features, being able to guide the reader through the discussion in a sophisticated way, the ability to challenge ideas. Whereas down at the bottom end on band 1, it's basically regurgitating what's there in the text, making generalized comments, not doing anything really very deep and academic, mostly being anecdotal or paraphrasing information that's already there. The 5 assessment objectives in English language are listed here, and AO1 is the ability to describe language features in detail and use the vocabulary of the subject to express ideas coherently. That's worth 75 out of the possible 300 marks. AO2 tests the knowledge and understanding of a range of theories that the student encounters and debates about language use. The idea is to evaluate and even challenge some of these explanations and accounts, and again, that's worth a very large part of the marks, 75 out of 300 again. AO3 is testing the ability to look at the contexts under which language is produced, how this might have an impact on language choices, and how we create meaning from language. So again, that's worth quite a substantial chunk at 70 marks. The 2 objectives with fewer marks are AO4, which tests the ability of students to compare texts and look for similarities and differences, either in existing texts or in ones that they produce themselves. And AO5 is assessing the ability to use language creatively to communicate in different ways. And again, a lot of this is through producing original writing. Okay, the areas that we have a look at in AQA language are textual variations and representations, which is how writers present their subject, and how the contextual factors such as purpose, audience, time that the text was produced, and the form the text comes in can influence those language choices, and that's on paper 1 of the exam, section A. We also look at child language development, which is investigating how children acquire language and the various theories that have been proposed, and whether these theories stand up to scrutiny, and that's on paper 1, section B. The third thing we do is look at language varieties, so the way that factors such as gender, age, social class, regional identity, sexuality might lead to some very large or some very subtle differences in how the user pronounces words, the meanings of those words, the order of construction of utterances, and the difference the varieties exhibit. That's tested on paper 2, section A, and that's one of the possible options. Students might choose instead to look at language change, which explores the historical, social, geographic, political, and technological reasons why English has and continues to change, and the attitudes that people have to these changes. This is also paper 2, section A, so it's the choice between language varieties or language change. And the final task in paper 2, in section B, is called language discourses. And this is how people talk about the issues to do with language change or varieties in society, and how their opinions and beliefs are represented in the texts that the students will analyse. Okay, into a little more detail on the exam structure for the individual papers. So then, paper 1, textual variations and representations, what the students will get is 2 thematically linked texts, but these will be from different time periods. They could be in different formats, such as a printed magazine article and something from a web blog. It may even be speech they encountered. However, whatever they encounter, there are 3 tasks that need to be completed, and this earns 70 marks in paper 1. So they look at text A, look at the language features, discuss the contextual factors that influence language choices, and explore how the topic, the audience, and the writer are being represented and what the text means. And that carries 25 marks, 10 marks for AO1, detailing the language features, and AO3, exploring the contextual factors. Exactly the same happens for text B, and so I don't need to go over that. It's exactly the same. The final task is to compare those 2 texts and look at the similarities or significant contrasts, so the students can pick up 20 marks for doing that comparison well. On paper 1, section B is where the students demonstrate their knowledge of children's language development. They'll get data samples of child's language. That can be either written transcripts of speech, or it could be a sample of children's writing. There'll be an assertion or a statement made about how children develop language or how language is acquired, and students should use the data to explore and to challenge these theories, so they need to point to examples. This question carries 30 marks. 10 are available for describing the language features and things that are found in the sample in some detail using the correct vocabulary, and 20 marks, sorry, I've written 30 there, but it should be 20, is using the theories and ideas that have been encountered to explain how the child is actually using language. So that's paper 1 over and done with. On to paper 2. Paper 2 reverses the structure a little bit. So section A is called diversity and change, and as mentioned previously, there's a choice of questions here. Students can either opt to do the language change or the language diversity, but should make sure that they don't attempt to tackle both. Similarly to paper 1, a statement or an assertion is made, and the student is asked to evaluate and explore and discuss that topic using the knowledge they've acquired. So, same principle again. 10 marks available for describing the features of language change or language diversities, and 20 marks available for discussing the theories and ideas